Welcome to No Club, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Ruthermans.
I'm Andy Kinnick.
And I'm JJ Artemis.
And today, we're going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, a game that was developed by Nintendo, published by Nintendo, and was released in 2023 on the Nintendo Switch.
But first, if you can give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom,
Yes,
is an action-adventure game. And also some other stuff.
it's many things.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
It is a Zelda game.
Yeah.
You know what that is.
It sure is. But more, I didn't give any thought. I imagined whenever I think about doing the podcast, I'm definitely always thinking about conversations that we definitely will have. But I did not give any thought into how I wanted to start this game, or start this podcast about this game. But the thing that jumps into my head personally is kicking you in the knee.
Yeah.
And then subsequently after doing that, saying this game is a sequel to Breath of the Wild directly in terms of both story and mechanic, and that is really strange to me. Coming from Zelda games being largely different for the majority of my life. And I was too young to know what Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask were when they came out, really. So that would be the closest thing, I think, to this. Outside of, I guess, some of the weirder other older ones.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does stand out as unique, I think. I'm sure there are games that have been like this. Like Far Cry Primal, I guess, comes to mind. Like a sequel that reuses the same map.
Yeah.
Stands out as like weirdly unique, even though like it doesn't seem like that weird of a thing for a company to do. But yeah, it kind of made me think of Ocarina of Time was supposed to have an expansion on the N64 disk drive, which is a thing that failed and they never really released it commercially.
Much like the Nintendo Switch disk drive that never came out.
Yeah. Because it was supposed to just be like a second quest, basically, for Ocarina of Time. So this just made me think about that.
Yeah. I remember before this game coming out, you specifically raising a concern about the fact that the map is the same. Mm-hmm. My reaction immediately was there is 0% chance that I'm going to remember where anything is, and so it's not going to matter to me at all. And that largely bore out to be true. But I'm wondering, did you find it to be good or bad? Or anything?
I don't know. I think I have mixed feelings about it. I think they absolutely did enough to make it different. But I did remember where everything was. Like I knew, like they start you out in the middle of Hyrule Field, and they're just like go wherever. So it feels a little like aimless. So like I kept like feeling like I was just wheel spinning the first like 20 hours of the game. So I'm like, oh, what's at Kakariko Village? Like what's at Hateno Village? What's at the Lost Woods? What's at the, like just kept thinking of all the different places in the game and like wanting to go there. So it was a weird experience.
I remembered the places, but not their orientations to each other. Beyond like base geography, right? Like, okay, so the Rito Village was like somewhere on the left, and it was by mountains, I think. Which is like the exact, I think, amount of memory they would have preferred you to have going into the game.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because now I get the nostalgia hit, and I get to appreciate all of like the upheavals that have happened, literal and otherwise, in your absence between games. It's the kind of nostalgia hit that the first game often triggered by like reusing really popular but decayed versions of other Zelda infrastructure. The Temple of Time, I think like Lon Ranch, you can like find a destroyed gate in there somewhere.
Bridge of Eldin and shit like that.
Yeah.
Castle Town, etc.
Yeah. I really enjoyed actually having that base level of familiarity with the structures from the last game, because it let me appreciate the differences without feeling like I was literally retreading ground. It was just different enough where I couldn't go to a place just because I remembered it.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say, and leading into like a slightly different thing. I think the fact that they reuse the map might come up here and there, and we'll address it as it does. Like, I don't think we need to do a dissertation on reusing a map right away. But I will say that one of the things that I didn't even think to do, though embarrassingly so, because I feel like it's something they clearly want you to do, is go see the Great Plateau, which is where the original game's tutorial took place. And by the time I got there, the thing that I realized was, man, Breath of the Wild's tutorial on the Great Plateau was like a million times better than Tears of the Kingdom Sky Island tutorial, which is way too long and sucks ass.
I will not accept this slander.
You're not going to agree with this.
Of the caretakers, specifically.
Oh,
the caretakers
okay.
made it all worth it to me.
I guess that's a thing to think about it.
I could run around, and I got to spend the whole time, unlike most tutorials, just petrified of what would happen if I fell. So I never figured it out, because I was a good boy and I never fell. I instead just, did all the puzzles correctly.
Yeah, I feel like the tutorial is actually shorter than the Great Plateau, but I think it just feels longer because you already played Breath of the Wild and you know what you're getting into. So you want to get past the tutorial, whereas in the first one, it didn't feel like a tutorial. It just felt like you were playing the game.
Right. But I think there are vanishingly few people, I feel like, who are playing Tears of the Kingdom without having played Breath of the Wild. That's probably not accurate. I'm sure that there's a significant percentage, but I don't think it's that significant. I feel like my experience is going to be shared by at least a fair number of people. The fact that the Great Plateau didn't feel like a tutorial is what made it good. Whereas in this particular instance, everything feels very tutorial-like. And there is a lot to do on the Great Sky Island, but almost all of it is going to be more worthwhile to come back to later, rather than do right at the beginning before you've even hit the ground. And to me, that's I don't know. I had a few moments, there was a fight that I did on a glacier. There were some dudes upstairs, and I had to fight them when I had no health and no way to give myself cold resistance. And they killed me 6 or 7 times, and I was just stubbornly trying to murder them, and that was a fun thing that I did.
Right.
And I could have just skipped if I wanted to, but there was a chest. But for the most part, I felt like the tutorial was very much just boring.
Yeah,
running around.
I don't disagree that it's worse. I don't know. I didn't feel like it felt long. It kind of felt more like it's just there for the rune tutorials and cuts out all of the other stuff that the Great Plateau had.
Right.
As being a microcosm of the rest of the game.
In my defense of it feeling long, I will say that the first time that I played the game, I did the tutorial and touched down at Hyrule Field, and then I just had to turn the game off and go to bed because it had been that long.
Yeah, me too, actually.
So it did feel like I had a day of tutorial.
Yeah, it does feel kind of weird, though, to me in retrospect, that it doesn't tutorialize, moving around the sky at all. Because this might be a more unique to me kind of thing, but I got down to Hyrule Field and just kept putting off exploring the sky at all, because I was like, oh, there's gonna be a way to explore it more easily later in the game, because now I can't even imagine how to get between two of them, you know. So I ended up just not engaging with the Sky Islands at all for 60 hours of gameplay.
Whoa. How'd you survive in the Underdark without little sun dandelions?
There's enough of them on the surface. You can get them at Kakariko Village and stuff.
Oh.
And the ruins that fall down will have them.
I will say 2 things. One is there's an NPC in Terrytown, or in the annex to Terrytown where they're doing all the construction, who's I think that the Sundelions probably come from the sky. And that was the very first time that I had ever considered where I was finding them. Up until that point, I was just I don't know, I got 60 of them or whatever. But then the actual answer to how do you survive in the underground is by not surviving or using them. You just blindly go from place to place while shaking in terror. And when you run out of hearts, you lose the game. That's how I played it. And it was a
Interesting.
great experience
Yeah,
that I loved.
I guess it makes sense that you would be like all in for like the build your own horror experience. Complete unrelenting blackness.
But we will talk about that later, I think.
Sure.
The underground part.
Then what are we talking about now, Chad?
I don't know. Well, we just went from tutorial straight to Sky Islands, and then we said, fuck it, let's talk about the depths. And I think the reason for that is that the Sky Islands are the biggest missed opportunity in the whole game, probably. At least to me. I don't know if other people agree.
I want to fill this podcast with love. I want
That's
to
fair.
put so much praise into this game that I could like push back. I am glad that you invited me here because I fear what an alternate universe without my presence would have been. We are constantly talking about different zones because different zones relate to one another. Like there are little woven connections built in that push you between the zones one way or the other. Apparently not up nearly hard enough.
No.
Agreed, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does push you, especially with the fact that the light roots and the shrines share a like vertical axis position, makes the depths a much more navigable place. Whereas the Sky Islands, I feel like you explore them in clusters more than you do as a whole, and to me, it made me not spend as much time on them. They all felt like discrete individual puzzles, and then once they were done, I never went back to them.
And I think the fact that like all the major ones are like tied to a dungeon or a story thing hurts it too, because like most of like the Sky Islands that exist that aren't part of a dungeon or a story thing are just like a small island with maybe a shrine on it.
And an enormous cool sphere. You can't forget about the
Right,
cool
yeah.
spheres that are also there.
Or like a big robot to fight.
Yeah.
Were there more than one big sphere?
I think there's 2.
There's at least 2 large spheres.
Okay. I remember the one sphere, and I would go back to it because it had carts and wings in it, which were a big part of my experience.
I would go back to it just to be within the sphere. So.
The mother sphere. But yeah, I do agree with you, though. I think that the game does a fairly good job of connecting all of its biomes, and kind of tying it into the fact that they reuse the map, you can really see where a lot of the time that wouldn't have been spent on making an entirely new world went. And the underground and the sky are part of it. And then everything else about the game is the rest of it. And there's a lot to talk about there. But yeah, I think they did a worse job, I think, of connecting the sky because it just is. It's hard to get up there.
Yeah, I think it would have done a lot to actually, like, with the chunks that fall down.
Yeah.
Like, I think that happens often enough and grabs your attention, but, like, if using the rewind on them actually took you all the way back up so
Right.
you could get there.
Some of them do. You gotta get on those buddies fast.
Yeah, or, like, if they're up on a mountain, maybe you'll get there, but...
I think it's actually distance from the ground is what determines if it'll get there. Like, I don't think time actually makes a difference. Because I think I remember getting to an island on one, like, once, and it was an island that was, like, not very high up. That just had, like, a chest on it in a field.
Yeah.
Comment if you remember what island I'm talking about.
When was the point that you both realized that this is not a sandbox in the video game sense, but like actually a sandbox, like the most detailed realization of like a child's imagination of what would happen when you bang toys together ever?
Probably related to the big sphere. It was probably when I realized that you could get a functionally unlimited number of Zonai devices.
Right.
Well, once I realized that, like, the charges, the Zonai charges, were not really that limited of a resource, and that if you put 5 of the large charges in one, a very pleasing animation of like a million things coming out of the little balls.
Yep.
would happen, and I just was running around with like 400 of every item, that's when I was like, I can do anything, and no one can stop me, not even God himself.
Yeah. It's like they took a Zelda game with like all of the normal like kind of janky combat elements that you would be used to and experiencing that would be serviceable, but not like an attraction in the same way that combat in a lot of more like developed AAA games are.
More like Dark Souls, style games.
Yeah. Or even like
Monster Hunter or something.
Monster Hunter's another good pull, right? But like you're not coming to Zelda for the combat, but it turns out you can, if you want to, like get real good at shield parrying, you know, or like dodge real well so you can trigger flurry rushes at the right time. But that's it feels embarrassing to be the kind of person who would attempt to be good at Zelda in that way, when you can instead like build a thresher that just like picks people up and like freezes them and then like eats them and chews them in a big comical mouth and throws them into a river.
Your own design.
Yeah. The game, it's almost like this whole video game exists where there's one layer that is mostly just Breath of the Wild, which is a very good video game that you're very familiar with, and then the tool set that they gave you for this cool sequel, just designed to make you like break the underlying sub game in hilarious, complex ways. It exists for you to like destroy, ignore, and laugh at in a way that is very pleasing to me.
How much did you guys find yourself actually like experimenting with stuff you could build?
Probably 90% of the game.
Yeah, almost constantly.
See, I didn't really like much at all. And I think it was because like anytime, this is something like a little bit of a criticism of the game, but like I don't really know. I know why they did it and everything, but like anytime you'd get to a place where there was like a problem to solve, you know, by sticking shit together, all the stuff you needed was already sitting there. That really bugged me, because like I've never like I would always just use the stuff because I'm like, oh, I see what they want me to do.
Right.
Like there was like a shrine, I think it's called like the Akala Citadel or something. There's like a shrine behind a waterfall, and I think it's the crystal, and you're supposed to like get the crystal like on a bird and like launch it through the waterfall and fly it across the water to the other side, and it's like. This would be so much more satisfying to do if all of the stuff to do it wasn't right here.
Right.
Like, to get to it and be like, oh, how do I get through the waterfall? Like, I felt like the game, like, discourages you from experimenting by just giving you all the tools you need.
So I agree with that. I think that when the game literally gives you everything that you need to do the thing, with the exception of shrines, I'm going to call out... I think shrines have been fine because you kind of have to do it that way because they're discrete puzzles. But in the overworld, when you like go into a place and there's just, especially the sign guy, we all know the sign guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Big fan, love the sign guy. His puzzles are all bad though.
Yeah.
Because they just give you everything that you need, and that makes you feel like you're just going through the motions, and it's not really very fun. A lot of the stuff, though, and I think particularly the puzzles to get into the sky towers, I think their intent is to make you think about what you did and then apply that somewhere else. So I think my problem that I had with it, because I think that what you're saying is just 100% true. Yeah. I think that when that happens, it sucks.
It's almost impressive, though. It's like literally like it felt like anywhere I went and thought like, oh, I could build a thing. I'd like look to the left or right and the stuff I would need was just there, as if they had people like play test the game for 10,000 hours and found the stuff people would want to make at every single location and put it in. It's wild.
Whenever the game calls out a challenge for you, it tends to also provide you the tools necessary to build that solution.
Right.
So that the test is supposed to be like a test that you know how to combine. It's like an engineering test that is very simple, especially to us, and not like a lateral thinking test. The game, I think, trusts you to put yourself in scenarios where you make your own goals that you use those lateral thinking tests to accomplish. Like, for example, when did you guys get the Master Sword? How far into the game?
I'd completed 3 of the main dungeons.
Yeah,
I don't know, probably like 50 hours.
Yeah, I think I grabbed it after 2 of them.
Exactly, right? And like I assume all had a similar story where we were like up real high and or bullshitting and trying to find the limits of the skybox with the crazy mechanic set that we had been handed on a golden platter, and all of us managed to like accomplish this ridiculous narrative feat like 15 hours before the game anticipates you actually doing that.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah, for me, I was at the tower above the woods, the one by the sword geoglyph.
Yeah.
And I shot up to do something in the sky, like maybe go to the labyrinth or some bullshit. I don't remember. And I was like, oh, can I like parachute into the Lost Woods? And then, because I hadn't considered that yet, because like I tried to go in there regular and couldn't figure out what the puzzle was and just left.
Yeah.
Or it gave you gloom or whatever when you went in or something like that.
No, it just does. It sends you back to the
Okay.
beginning.
Well, anyway. And then that doesn't work. It's just like, oh, you were consumed by the fog and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, shit, I'll go underground. And then, like, like once I just started actually thinking about it, that's how I came to it.
Does like the Grey Deku tree like lead you to where to go?
No, you just go in and I'm like, oh, it's like, because like you on the map, if you change it to above ground while you're underground, it shows the above ground map on the mini maps. I was like, oh, is this how you solve the puzzle? And it's like you have to like look at where to go on a different map. That's actually not the case. Like I just started like exploring under the ground. And then you get under the Great Deku Tree, and you can swim up through it into the chasm.
Right.
No, I meant like how you got to the Master Sword, because that's what he was asking.
Because the Master Sword is not there.
Right, yeah,
Right?
yeah. The Deku Tree does just tell you where it is.
Gotcha. Yeah, I already had it by the time that I got to the Great Woods or
Same.
whatever.
The Lost Ones.
The Lost Woods.
Yeah.
And I literally just did the geoglyph quest, and then it tells you to go do the thing and jump on Zelda's head.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's literally just like it guides you right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's...
But so you just found Zelda flying around the sky?
Yeah, I was trying to break the skybox.
Okay.
Because I figured out that, like, oh, those little... I don't even know what you called them. The floating bricks, not the ones that you activate as Zonai devices, but rather just like the freestanding ones in the sky zone.
Now, the ones that are like giant and have like a mesh pattern.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
The mesh pattern giant bricks.
I have a story about those that frustrates me to no end, but also I think is emblematic of my playthrough of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the answer for me is no. I did not find it the way that you did.
Yeah. But you were on a floating brick.
Yeah, but like I got the Master Sword. Like the game doesn't tell you about it until like the end, till after you get the last sage. It's like, go get the Master Sword if you don't already have it. So
I have to imagine everyone had to have gotten it prior to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing the quest for the geoglyphs does just like it opens another memory. And the light dragon I already determined was Zelda like 20 hours.
Oh,
ago.
yeah,
it's very heavily foreshadowed.
Yeah. So like it wasn't like a big thing, but no, I did not do anything creative to do that. I wouldn't say that I did anything creative to progress the game in any way. I mostly did creative things
for bullshit.
Kill all of the time in the whole world and make this game take a really long time.
I never did try to break to find the limits of the skybox.
I did not. I failed. I ran out of little...
It's like mechanically gated by battery power.
It was just... No, that was the thing that brought this whole story to its start, is that I realized that when I ran out of power on... not parachutes. What's the opposite of a parachute when you have a fire underneath of it?
Hot air balloon.
Hot air balloon, yeah. I realized that I could just like attach the hot air balloon to like the cool brick.
Yeah.
And it would just stay at its point, whatever it was. So I was like, oh, I don't know how long those weird parachute hot air balloon things last. Let's just do that for 30 minutes in a row. And then I did, and got to a point where I could like take a cool picture of the dragon because it happened to be close, and zoomed in and was like,
wait a minute.
"What the fucking Master Sword on there?"
It would be cool. Does the camera like identify it? Like, you know how it like tells you what things are?
It was too far away for either to be identified. It was literally just me being like, "Yay, picture."
That would be kind of cool.
Oh yeah, if it said
it was
Master
like,
Sword.
Yeah, Master Sword.
I did. I wonder if other people did this. I guarantee you that other people did do this. I just assumed you had to shoot the Master Sword like you do to get the dragon parts. And so the first thing I did was just unload an absolute volley of arrows straight into Zelda's fucking cranium.
So mean. So mean.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, in the end, you jump in and yank a sword out of her head. That probably sucks too.
Yeah, but that's a healing action. If I had a sword in my head, I would want it to be removed. Given like the proper care. Mm-hmm. But like,
you would not want 12 arrows shot into your eye and skull.
No. Why'd you shoot it in her eye?
I missed.
It's 3 feet in front of you.
You don't know how far away I was.
I guess.
I was trying to do a cool trick shot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing heavily enabled by this game, cool trick shots.
Absolutely.
This is a trick shot friendly environment.
I want to talk about those floating bricks because they're difficult to get moving. They resist moving from a standard device, at least from my experience.
They
Rockets work pretty well.
They're hefty.
Yeah. So I had a quest, a shrine quest.
Ooh.
One of the green crystal things.
Uh-huh.
On a sky island that was like, the same as they always are. But it was the first one that I had done.
Right.
So it was like green crystal in a cave on the bottom part of an island.
I had this exact same experience.
Yeah, and then the one up there. And I managed to get to it, and I saw the vines coming down. And so I pulled out a flame emitter thing, like a weapon that had the flame emitter attached to it. And I swung it, and it didn't catch on fire. And I realized that the reason that happened is because the flame emitter on a weapon sucks ass, and you shouldn't do it. It's just bad, and it doesn't reliably catch things on fire. So I just left and was like, I have to ascend up into it. And so I went and got one of those big things and like a series of fans and batteries and stuff and like slowly blew myself underneath of it.
Nice.
This is probably like, I'm not joking. I joke about time a lot.
You do.
45 minutes I spent trying to get to the perfect spot to pop up where the crystal was.
Nice.
And did eventually. And then I was like, how do I get it out of here? Because I can't ascend with it.
Right.
And then I found out you could just burn you just burn the vines.
Yeah. You can cut them too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I didn't try that one.
I somehow never tried that either. I always just caught him on fire.
Yeah, I had to burn it. And then I went back, and it worked fine.
Just threw a fire fruit at it or whatever.
Yeah. But to me, that was like such in a way, that was, to come back to the question that was asked now, like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That was sort of when I started, like, getting into the actual, like, okay, what am I able to do versus, like, what is the game requiring of me?
Right.
Because I took that experience as being, like, I wasn't thinking outside the box, or I was thinking too far outside the box, it turns out. But I thought it was the opposite problem. Whereas before I'd be like, oh, can I take these wagon wheels from the thing that is all over the place? And rock me mama with them. And I put it together as a wagon and it just didn't move.
Yeah.
And it took me like 8 minutes to do that. And I was like, well, fuck it. I'll just run.
That was kind of my experience.
Same. Universal experience. You get below the ground and you see all those places with like the wood that's been conveniently set aside for you.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I have powers. Time to make a car.
Exactly.
And what you actually made was like a 5-year-old's approximation of a car.
Right.
That has no power at all. It's made of shitty wood and burns and breaks itself all the time.
Yeah.
I kind of love that.
I do. I love that you have to hit devices to get them to start,
Yep.
so that there's always that chance that you just shatter it and
You just break something. Yeah. Like I made a lot of like put down a board and attach 2 hot air balloons to it types of things.
Yeah.
And would often forget that if it's not a metal like thing, the board that you attach the hot air balloons to would just catch on fire.
Yep. And you just go away. I tried so hard to get a metal plate up a cliff effectively
Yep.
without using those. Not because it was like a personal challenge, I just didn't have them. So I had like fans set up, and I was like, and go, and it just fucking wouldn't do it.
I never tested this, but like one thing I would do is if I didn't have flame emitters, you can just put a bundle of wood into the hot air balloon and light it on fire. It's like I don't know if those ever run out. Does the wood ever just if you let it burn long enough?
I have no idea.
That's a good question.
It lasts longer than the hot air balloon, which is all that really matters.
You could theoretically ride that up really high.
The hot air balloon also explodes. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it takes a while to get there, but you do get there.
There's an auto build schema stone that you get called a dirigible.
Nice.
And I remember going like, what is the difference between this and the hot air balloon other than it looks way less efficient? And the answer I realized after building it is that it has two torches that sit underneath of the thing, so you can turn it on and it will rise, and then you can turn it off and the torches will just let it hover. So yeah, I think that there are a lot of ways to just like keep a hot air balloon going indefinitely, essentially, but that was the way I found out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dirigible actually a very cool and useful schema stone.
This whole game is like rediscovering the joys of Gary's Mod past.
It's essentially, yeah.
Yes, you were describing the 45-minute experience, and I do want to clarify that when I hear that, it's like, yes, like I relate to that in so many ways. I was filled with such joy and happiness every time I fucked up and broke a thing and it just flew off to the left and exploded. It's really all I want out of most open world games is just the ability to roll a grenade down a hill and ruin all my plans. Yeah.
It really is just to me, I described the original Breath of the Wild, and I don't suggest listening to that episode necessarily to hear this one line, but I do insist this is very much like Nintendo's take on the immersive sim genre. But that was wrong because this is Nintendo's take on the immersive sim genre.
Yeah, I never played Gary's Mod, but I think that's a great way to describe it. It has that energy.
Yeah.
100%.
And in Gary's Mod, my favorite attachable item, this probably dates me because I don't know, they've updated Gary's Mod a lot since I played it, was the rocket. And my favorite item in Tears of the Kingdom is the rocket.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, the rocket is amazing.
Almost always unwise, but universally amazing.
It's the best thing I've ever fused to a shield.
Oh, easily.
In the whole game.
Yeah. That and the bombs.
I felt very dumb that I never watched any trailers for this. Before playing, I never thought to attach a rocket to a shield, and found out later that's one of the go-to things everybody does.
Oh yeah, this game has so much social media FOMO kind of built into it, where you'll have a really cool accomplishment when you realize some particular quirk of the physics engine, and then you'll go online and see the most unbelievably ridiculous, not just builds, but series of takes and actions, right? Getting good at this game really just means having a resource pool necessary that you can curb stop literally anything without it being even a demonstrable threat to you.
Yeah, I keep wanting this is bad because my brain keeps wanting to talk about the end of this game, but I shouldn't. It just isn't the time. But yeah, I found that one of the things that in the original episode everybody called me an alien monster for saying
right.
is that I would try to avoid all the combat at all times. I still think the combat in this game is pretty bad. I think it's the weakest part of the game by a pretty gigantic margin.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter anywhere near as much in this game as it did because they've now given me a million ways to circumvent it.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with you in this game. I found once I got a third of the way in, I largely avoided combat when I could as well. I like the combat, but I think after 200 and however many hours I've spent playing both these games, maybe 300-ish, it gets old.
Yeah. There's just not enough that you can do and the enemies don't really vary themselves enough. I do like that there are more enemy types in this game.
I do love that trees are enemies.
Yeah, the tree enemy is one of my favorites for many reasons.
But yeah, I did enjoy early on like the monster strongholds. Like I thought it was fun to storm those.
Oh yeah.
For like 20 some hours,
Yeah, just to like storm some strongholds.
Yeah, and then it kind of gets old.
Yeah, the version of the Breath of the Wild had too many encounters that were exactly the same. In this game is that they copy and pasted the monster stronghold 750,000 times throughout the depths, and all they really were after a certain point was just signs that said go around, like, because you're not going to stop and fight every stronghold in the depths for like 25 zoanite, so you're just gonna go around them all the time.
Yeah,
and it's a bit tragic because, like I said, the depths one of my favorite places in the game, and it was sad that like I didn't feel encouraged to engage in the combat there.
Agreed. Yeah, I remember the way that I decided that like, okay, I'm done with this game, let's go end it now, was when I was like, let's light up the depths entirely. And I had a level of mobility, even without like many Zonai devices, where I could literally just like fly light route to light route, and it ceased to be a journey at that point, and instead like was a very easy checklist, a very interesting checklist that occasionally produced like rewarding results. The first Lionel I ever found was like an underground Lionel with like the red corruption. Yeah, it was pretty sick. So I, of course, wasted like 5 hours attempting to deal with that in a way that was fun. But yeah, but for the most part, you definitely reach a point in the game where you no longer trust that there's going to be something new that you find. But until you have like fully turned on the lights, the game does still have that magic. The game is a lot better when it has a credible promise that anything can happen, until eventually you reach the point where you have seen most of those things.
Yeah, like my favorite part of the game was like my first time down in the depths. And I was like, how far can I go?
Yeah.
Before I lose all 6 hearts or however many I had at the beginning. And like that was like probably the most fun, intense like hour and a half or whatever I had with the game.
Yeah, to me the depths started to, I would say, like, I still liked it pretty much all the way through. I didn't go light the whole thing up. I feel like that would destroy a mystery that I'm not prepared to let go of yet.
You want it to be, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be dark. Otherwise, what's the point? But it started on its downward slope when I realized that water is impassable in the depths, because the water is like the boundary.
Right.
And so I would get to a cliff and I would climb it for like an hour. I'm like, how do I get to the top of this? Because I've been to cliffs that I could surmount.
Right.
And so I'm like, maybe in this one, because I wasn't checking like the above ground, below ground. I hadn't made the association yet because it's so early. So I would like to throw a fucking thing and like get up there, and then I would have like a spike and I would stick a plank in the wall and rest and like wait and then move it up and then try and climb up to it and then rest some more and try and light up more of it, and then I hit a ceiling. I was like, no. Not now, after all this time.
It is a cave, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be, by definition, that has to exist.
Yeah, no, I did the exact same thing. Like, there was a point early on, like, I was trying to climb up a wall that just went into a ceiling.
It's just very...
Wasted a bunch of stamina regen stuff on it.
Yeah. But it was still, that's great, though. That was the stuff that made me... But that's when I realized, like, oh, okay, this is the ocean. I can't proceed.
Weirdly, that rule is not universally true. It's true like 90% of the time. I really freaked myself out at one point by ascending into that lake that the whirlpool exists in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you 100% can go up there and just like appear in water in a very glitchy way. But it exists.
Well, I know you can ascend into water because I've done it on multiple occasions. It's just... in that lake seems bad.
Yeah.
Lake Hylia. I will say, I think a lot of the mysteries of this game I did probe pretty successfully, just because I am in no way afraid of dying in this game. Because, like, I remember I saw that whirlpool and I was like, I'm just gonna jump right in it. Like, I'm no hesitation. Not like maybe I build a boat. I'm like, first things first. Head in the water. That's where I'm headed.
I mean, I think like the game wants you to do that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a thing down there to
Yeah.
do. So
This game is just ripe for like intense gamer DLC. Can you imagine this game with like highly limited resources, like a more intense version of the occasional "you have no shit" shrines that would pop up?
okay, yeah,
Yeah. Like, because
the energy bar. Hear me out.
yeah.
The batteries that
Yeah.
you have.
Yep.
When they run out, they stay dead for like 24 real world hours unless you pay Nintendo $1.
That's not even what I mean.
Okay.
I don't even mean
Like Eventide Island.
Yeah, I
basically.
mean, because part of what I think all of us as like post 30-year-old adults are discussing here is that.
Oh, we established actually on the last episode that I'm 19.
Oh, okay. Apologies. Of
So,
post 18-year-old adults.
Good.
Yeah. Is that when you reach a point where you have that kind of mastery of the systems themselves are so impressive that they carry the game to me. But at that point, like everything else in the environment becomes dolls, right? They're all just like hilarious. There's no enemy except for like maybe certain kinds of Lionels that aren't just like literally a thing for you to play with once you really prep for it.
I'm gonna nominate Gleox as also being very. They're difficult for you to fuck with in the same way.
They are, but you could totally do it.
I mean, you can do it with a Lionel too.
Yeah, correct. But yeah, how did you beat your first Gleok?
I didn't.
There's a quest to go kill the one on the Bridge of Hylia. That was the first one I killed. There's a fire one.
How'd you do it?
I mean, I just fought it.
Like a cool swordsman?
Like a cool swordsman. Yeah, I did not do any bullshit. I found the ice one way harder to fight because the fire one makes updrafts. But like the ice one makes things that you can reverse time and fly up. But it can freeze you all the time, and that makes it much harder.
Yeah. The first one that I fought had a name card that said King Gleok. And I said, oh, I'll kick its ass. I did not kick its ass. I had like 11 hearts at the time, and it killed me in one hit. And it was up in the sky.
Rough.
So, there was nothing I could do, so I left. And I've yet to kill one. I killed one Lionel, I think.
I went to that Coliseum in the depths that has all the Lionels, unbeknownst to me, and killed them all except the last one. I was just completely out of resources and couldn't do it, and I had to run away.
Sad.
It was sad. But how did you kill one?
By prepping all of my shields with like either bombs or the little rockets so that I could always get in the air for slow time.
Oh, yeah, that would make it much easier.
And then using ice keys arrows to like easy blind it. And then after easy blind, kind of just repeating that over and over again. I tried a full bullshit, like, because everything dies in the water, right? So like I attempted to do a thing where I could like hopefully knock it out and then just like pick it up in a big scoop and dump it, but I've never succeeded in that at all.
That would be pretty cool.
I will say that the way that I got beyond the ice Gleok, which was the one that gave me problems in completing a quest, was by skitching on a horse on a sled shield, which was pretty cool.
I'm sorry, skitching?
It's like where you use them. Well, technically speaking, I would have to be holding on to the horse as it moved for it to count as skitching.
Okay.
But I used momentum from the horse, leapt off of it, and then flipped onto a sled shield like I was Tony Hawk mixed with Sean Mullins.
I see. All right. It's a skateboarding term, not a like horse riding term.
I mean, I don't know much about equestrian sport.
Exactly. I mean, neither do I, but I imagine they don't have the vibe of like an extreme 90s sports racer.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Did you find the Fabio horse, JJ?
I did not. Is that just a huge
The
horse?
huge
Big
horse.
giant
Oh yeah, I
horse,
did
yeah.
find the just enormous horse.
Yeah. For some reason, I couldn't name him anything other than Fabio. That's just like immediately what came to mind.
Yeah.
Good.
Fabio definitely known for being on horses.
Yeah.
And also being a big man.
And having blonde hair and wearing like a white billowy shirt.
Yep.
The horse was white with blonde hair.
It was.
It is very much the Fabio horse.
Yes.
Let it be known
Throughout the land.
from this day hence.
What? What is to be known?
It's a Fabio horse.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Do we want to continue talking about The Legend of Zelda Tears in the Kingdom?
After the break.
Yes.
I guess. Sure,
Okay,
Yeah, 45 minutes.
We
Seems
shouldn't
like
leave
good
them
break time.
Like in suspense about the answer. We should be like, yeah, we're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not. All right. Okay, we'll do that.
Because they know, right? Because they can just like look down at the podcast and be like, oh, there's more of it. Actually.
They aren't gonna not come back. Probably. Welcome back. We talked pretty broadly, I would say, on the first half.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
If you revisit our catalog.
Which you should.
Yeah.
To get our views up.
Yeah.
Engagement. I want to talk about specifically things that I think the fact that this game reuses the map afforded them the opportunity to do.
Okay.
If you look at what we and others have complained about regarding Breath of the Wild, dungeons, where were they? Not in Breath of the Wild. That's where they weren't. And enemies, sort of repetition, a lot of things that were like a little bit too much. Good God, did they make everything better in this game? I will say the dungeons, I'm a little disappointed that they all just sort of were like fine 5 things. The special shout outs to the desert temple. I don't know.
Oh,
Pyramid.
yeah. Yeah, like maybe the best dungeon.
In the game for sure.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of them were just sort of, and it even has like the fine 5 things, but it does it in a much cooler way than the other ones do.
Agreed.
But yeah, I thought they were all very cool. I thought it was very varied. The actual progression through the game just generally feels like an entirely different experience than Breath of the Wild did. So I don't know.
No, 100%
Discuss.
question for you.
Yes.
Do y'all think that this game like fully supplants Breath of the Wild? Like, would you ever recommend someone play Breath of the Wild and then this game, or would you just recommend that they play this game?
I know that we literally did, but it was when we were like early days in
Like the game had
Tears
just
of the
come out,
Kingdom.
yeah.
I kind of do. I think that there's a lot of things in this game that are directly a version of something that existed in Breath of the Wild. Ultrahand is Magnesis, but better. Ascend is Cryonis, but infinitely much better. Also, Ultrahand takes part of that away. There are a lot of things like bombs being just as readily available, essentially, but now can be stuck on even more things and do more different stuff. It feels like they took a lot of the systems and improved on them more so than it being like a branch off. At the same time, though, I think there's still something worth it. I'm going to get to something in my final thoughts that I think kind of like encapsulates this and maybe answers it better. But I think that I still loved my experience with Breath of the Wild and would recommend people play it. But I think that if you have the opportunity to play this one first, it might actually be a good idea.
Yeah, right? Like, in the first half, there was a lot of discussion about the ways that our pre-existing familiarity with the game played into our experience in Tears of the Kingdom in a few ways good and several ways bad. I'm trying to imagine what it would have been like. I think I would have been like less tired of the combat loop if it was not virtually a beat for beat copy of the combat loop that I did 100 hours of 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? If you were like learning those base interactions, learning how awesome it is to be able to just climb over anything all the time at the same time that you have all these like crazy bullshit Zonai abilities,
Right.
I feel like that might elevate the experience even more. So like currently, I'm on team just play Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I feel torn about it. Because it's really hard not to just like take your own personal experience into account too much. Like I really liked playing Breath of the Wild and then playing this after it, and it kind of like what Chad was saying, being like an expansion of what Breath of the Wild was. So my gut instinct is to say I would recommend Breath of the Wild first, but I don't know. I think it depends on the person, like if you care about stuff like that.
Isn't it crazy that like we're even having this conversation too?
Yeah.
That like Breath of the Wild, this thing that like was industry wide treated as this enormous watershed moment that's going to like change open world games forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like they made one sequel to it, and now we're like, oh, should people even play this unbelievably influential, one of the greatest scored games in the history of the medium?
Well, I think potentially one of the things that made Breath of the Wild in specific special in comparison to Tears of the Kingdom is that Breath of the Wild it was less innovative of it on itself, and it was more iterative. I feel like Breath of the Wild took what were tropes of open world games in the early 2010s all the way up through 2020 and made better versions of a lot of it. The world map was more engaging. There was more stuff to do that felt actually meaningful as opposed to just sort of like collectibles of garbage variety.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt more lived in and less annoying to play.
Yeah, there isn't just like a checklist of objectives to go get.
The way that they like organized the actual terrain itself to incentivize you to discover things in certain orders.
Right.
Like that was all like crazy and important. And it's all equally true with Tears of the Kingdom. It's the same map.
Right. But then Tears of the Kingdom comes around and it takes all of those same iterations and then it applies innovation to them. I would say that I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild itself was a non-innovative game and did nothing new and sucks.
That's a hot take.
Yeah. I'm saying that I think the thing that made it good was the fact that it took things that had already been done and made them better. Its innovations were more in like applying its physics system, like its specialty system.
True.
And Tears of the Kingdom is just the better version of that physics system. And it's given us tools to use it. The fact that you don't have a restriction on the number of Zonai devices that you can carry with you is telling that they wanted that to be a core part of your experience, and that that sort of exploration is what makes Tears of the Kingdom as different as it is from Breath of the Wild.
Agreed. Like I love that comparison about like you could totally picture the alternative game that attempts to restrict your Zonai devices to try and make individual combat encounters like more engaging and like more resource intensive. Mm-hmm. And they didn't go that route at all. They continued to go the route where it is not they weren't trying to create super engaging puzzly challenges, at least yet. Here comes DLC. What they were trying to do was just like give you this mind-blowing tool set. Yeah. Big fan.
Yeah. I will say that there's a certain type of person that I would probably recommend Breath of the Wild to over Tears of the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And the type of person that comes to my mind is the kind of person who will optimize fun out of a game.
Yeah.
Because
I thought you were just going to say me.
Well, also you. Because I feel like potentially Breath of the Wild... I mean, I don't know. We'd have to really do a deep dive on it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do because we're on a podcast. So we will in a minute. Because I think the narrative content is a draw, is a reason to play Breath of the Wild first. Mm-hmm. Because it gives you context and everything for Tears of the Kingdom, and is good in its own right, like better than most Zelda games generally are.
Agreed.
And Tears of the Kingdom continues in that tradition for the most part, I think, but has interesting quirks of its own. So that is also a good reason to do it. Mm-hmm. But I do also think that there's the person who like Google's fast way to move and then just does that for the whole game and just never walks anywhere.
Yeah, I think
And that's just not
yeah,
fun.
and so you. No, no, I think it just depends on like whether or not you value that kind of stuff. Like playing the first one, there's like a lot of context. It's kind of designed for it to be your first thing, so like the beginning of it's very like intentionally designed to ease you into the world, whereas the second one kind of drops you in a little bit more. So like if you care about things like that, yeah, it's just like the game's similarities, I think, do really make this an interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the narrative. I am curious how the narrative hit for you two.
Oh God. Kind of similarly to the first one, I think. Like, I liked what was there, but the way that, like, you kind of find it all through, like, memories and flashbacks make it feel like you're a bit too disconnected from it. Mm-hmm. But, like, overall, like, it is high quality. Like, like, all the cutscenes are nice. The voice acting doesn't bother me as much as it does some people. But, yeah, no, I like it. I appreciate that it's there. I wish there was maybe a little bit more in the game proper and less of it was backstory, but like, I mean, I'm pleased with it overall, I think.
Yeah.
For like an open world, it's hard to do story in an open world game.
Yeah, it's really weird how they kind of like had their cake and eat it too by like front loading a story with the cold open, which is great. I was so in immediately.
Yeah, like the part like at the beginning where you're going down under the castle with Zelda.
Yeah.
Like more stuff like that throughout the whole game would be really cool.
Yeah.
But that would also be really hard to implement in an open world game.
Right. So they had like the narrative begin and then, just literally came up with time travel as like the best, excuse for why you could have all of these like interspersed, chunks of narrative in a similar way to the game prior. Mm-hmm. It's like a little bit more, it's more of a reach. It still works in my opinion and I really enjoy it, but
an idea I just had that would have been like fucking awesome is like let you play the flashbacks. Like have them like be little sequences where you like play as Zelda. Like, like it wouldn't even have to be that substantial, but like short little sections and then the big cutscene. Mm-hmm. So you feel like a little bit more connected to it.
Would have been a great additional way to expand the functionality of Recall too. I feel like Recall was one of my least used like of the major abilities.
Yeah. There was like it was like I was probably on like the fire temple or whatever. Like there was a part where there was like a bunch of lava platforms floating along some lava, and I'm like, just like time reverse it, like because I had like barely used it to that point in the game, and like I rode it across, like just time reverse it. I'm like, I'm gonna make a mental note to like try to think to use Recall because it's very easy to overlook it.
Dude, the thing that like an assumption I made about Recall that absolutely wasn't true, that made it way more useful to me in my last like quarter of play, is that I didn't connect that Recall like functionally doesn't have a range limit.
Like, it does have a very far.
Right. You eventually do get there, but it's like way farther than you think that it is. I thought that it was like approximately the same radius of where you could interact with things with the Ultrahand, but like it's closer to just like if it's on screen, you can just time recall it, and that really opened up a lot of scenarios for me where like I had written it out because I assumed that it was like out of my interactive zone.
Right. I mostly used Recall in two ways. One of which was I immediately react with it anytime that I see a projectile coming toward me. It took me a little bit to get into the groove, but I did end up treating it like a dodge button by the end of the game. But then the other thing was is using it like stasis in the first game to just keep something in place for a second. And then use the actual best ability in the entire game, Ascend, to climb things by picking it up, then reversing time, and then jumping through it, and then grabbing something else and doing the same thing while you're floating in air, to be a jackass. But I do want to talk about the narrative still.
Agreed, yeah. I actually have very complex feelings on this. It kind of triggered, like, a minor, not panic attack at all. That's like 9 million years too strong. Like a troubling realization, let's call it, in like my opinions about narrative games.
Hit us.
So this game follows in a trend of narratives that genuinely did hit well for me, and that I thought were impactful and good, that are all about more of mapping out the outlines of stories that are designed for you to fill in the gaps. I talk about this a lot in the context of Fire Emblem with certain character interactions as well, where it is not a narrative in the sense of like The Last of Us or something, where there is like a cohesive story that you have access to all of the beats to. Rather, you're seeing like the impression made on things that you organically interact with in the environment, and then you make the connections about the things that happened afterward. Not to the extent of like even like a a Vati video or something crazy like that, but just environmental storytelling, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting to like turn a corner on that. Not in how much I enjoy it. I clearly do still enjoy it a great deal, but it's becoming troubling to me that like a lot of the narratives that are beginning to be impactful for me are not literally stories about people. They're stories that I'm making up for myself about things that I am seeing, right? Like a lot of these games that are doing so well, they are presenting a framework for a story that we're supposed to like glop onto. And I'm worried that we're like heading into a future where the trendier thing is to not actually try and do the hard thing and write the story, but instead do this interesting but easier thing where you let other people do the work for you in a way that is more meaningful to them.
I think, and I don't intend to push you further into a corner, a black box of self-doubt, but I think that this game takes even an easier way out, in a way that is upsetting, I guess, in that way, where it is like the main plot line of the game in terms of like action reaction, what's actually going on, has to do with Ganondorf, of Gerudo fame,
the king of the Gerudo,
the king of the Gerudo,
sexy man himself,
yes.
Ganondorf,
him, the Demon King,
yes,
the sexy one,
the
Ganondorf.
Sexy Demon King Ganondorf,
yeah.
In case you were confusing it with a different Ganondorf.
The Ganondorf without the shirt.
With no shirt.
Yes.
Is sexy. King of the Gerudo.
Yes.
Ganondorf.
That guy.
Yeah,
yes.
Ganondorf.
But he is a corpse in a room. For the whole game.
But it's like a hot corpse.
Well, no. Not so much.
No, I'm not following you there. Yeah.
So he's a corpse in a room for a very long portion of this game, and so the things that you are interacting with, you Link, with the not sexy,
the twink Link.
Yeah. He runs around and interacts with aren't directly related to the actual plot. So a lot of the story beats that you're picking up are things that are happening in major locations. But the here to there, you're like, most of it is just people being sad that monsters came back and that they destroyed their town or like forced them out. Or mostly those two things.
Yeah.
And occasionally some other thing. They took my shit and put it on a mountain. Go get it. And that isn't like environmental storytelling in service of the greater narrative of the game. Yeah. It's environmental storytelling in sort of a beat for beat kind of way. What did fucking Josh from whatever Who Cares Village do? And you're like, okay, he did that. I helped somebody win an election in probably a very illegal manner in Hateno Village, and that is like an interesting story, but like, what does that have to do with the Demon King? I would argue probably nothing, other than I did wear that hat when I beat the Demon King.
Yeah, it is very like much like a trendy thing nowadays to do like there isn't really like the story itself in the game is just you go fight the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an interesting way to like update the classic like go save the princess kind of narrative where it's like instead of focusing on story, you focus on backstory and like stuff that happened before that the player can like put the pieces together. And I think that works really well with an interactive video game, like especially ones where exploration is a focus.
Agreed.
But like I don't think you really need, and this is just my speculation, but like to worry that that's going to take over. Like I think like traditional narratives will always still exist in games, and like this will just be its own niche.
Of course.
But like, I think it's definitely here to stay, though.
I wasn't
think.
necessarily like attempting to imply that like about an industry trend.
Right.
I meant personally for me.
Oh, you
I'm
think
worried
you're-
that like the majority of the media that I'm consuming and that like I'm identifying with tells stories in that way.
Okay.
And I wish that I could instead relate to or be moved by much more specific granular stories, I guess.
Okay.
Well, my prescription for all people is to listen to the No Clip podcast, where we can talk about games like Perfect Tides, a game that tells a direct narrative story that is moving.
Good.
But anyway,
Take note of that.
I do think that this is all true, though. I think that, this game definitely falls into, similar to how Breath of the Wild did, mechanically speaking, this game falls into sort of some actual industry trends, even if that isn't what you were implying. Definitely, it is doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's definitely not detrimental to the experience of the game, because it would be too hands-on if this game tried to tell like a direct story. Like, I don't want control taken away from me in this game. It feels like it goes against the design ethos of giving you a rocket shield.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's like, because the whole reason that this shift in the industry started is because so many people of like the generation before this one that were making games were attempting to emulate like something approximating Final Fantasy VI, where like the prospect of having a formalized narrative at all was coming. It was like a thing that you could do. You could just fill the game with so much text and so many cool cutscenes, right? The people totally like not corrected, but like definitely biased toward that direction a whole lot, and started to miss the forest for the trees. Like that the story of the game is supposed to be the story of like what happened to you while you were playing the game, which is something that Tears of the Kingdom is obviously great at, right? Like we all have shared like bullshit nonsense that we tried.
Yeah.
I guess there's just a part of me that's like concerned that the game is like this like really like moving tale about like personal sacrifice and like the inevitability of death until the end. And then it eventually just kind of, but the actual story of the game, the story that like the mechanics tell about what you're doing,
Right.
is like I made a giant dick and like spit fire on the dick on some goblins, and
Yeah.
the goblins ran around and like screamed because they're dumb goblins. Right. It's that contrast that I guess makes me a little bit
Right. You just said the good part of the game.
Yeah. Maybe I'm definitely aiming too high here. And I've played video games for so long. I've played so many video games.
Yeah.
I've played so many video games that like it seems unreasonable to demand this kind of thing. And I'm not intending to demand it. I'm just saying that I wish there was more games that in the style of like a tabletop RPG were molding its mechanics toward particular story outcomes and not just particular gameplay interactions. But I've said my piece on this topic enough.
Yeah. What we need is Planescape Torment vis-a-vis Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Planescape Tears.
Tears of the Torment.
Yeah, sure. We'll call
There
it
you
that. We'll get to work on it right away.
I hope that this Link and Zelda like get therapy though after the events of it, because like they were born and then lived to adulthood, and then both were put into stasis for 100 years, and then reawoke in the same place where everyone they knew is now dead, and then they had most people they knew are now dead.
I got like two friends.
Except for the fish people that live forever. Are
Oh yeah.
still there.
Well, wow, even more friends than I thought. They got
Yeah.
the fish people. They got the real old lady. They've got Pura,
Impa.
Pura, yeah.
Pura, Impra.
The real old lady.
Yeah, they got two human friends.
Yeah, that's
Most
more
people
than
who are
none.
most people who are 100 in real life don't have two human friends.
Yeah, but then Zelda gets sent back in time, like 5,000 years or whatever. And Link also is now once again knocked out for 5 more years, and like that's got to take a toll on you, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I do have to say,
And then Zelda was a dragon for a long time.
She didn't remember that. Thank
Yeah.
God.
yeah, she didn't remember being a dragon. However, I remember Zelda being a dragon.
Yeah.
And it's fucking cool.
Oh, it's great,
so good.
Yeah.
I do want that does that does, I think, make me more happy about the narrative than I may have been otherwise, because it's such a good plot development.
It's cool, and like it lets you put the pieces together for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's engaging. That's why it's good.
Yeah.
Not all the parts of the narrative are.
Well, also it's good because she's like a cool dragon.
Well, yeah, also dragons are red.
I think it's funny to me because, like, the dragons are such an iconic part of Breath of the Wild. I think everyone had a unique story the first time that they ran
did
into
you know
one.
there was a dragon in the game?
Yeah, because most people that I've talked to didn't know that there was just going to be a giant dragon flying around in the sky.
Yep.
And then you run into one, and it's shocking. And you go, whoa! And I think people really liked that. And so I think that they saw that reaction and were like, what's the way to do that again? Like, how do you... Because we're going to bring the dragons back. People like the dragons. It would be weird for them to be gone.
Yeah.
How do we recapture that experience with the dragons and still make them important? It's like, well, what if we made like Zelda the dragon?
See, well, I had like my moment with the dragon in this game that was awesome was jumping down into a chasm while one was flying up out of it at the same time.
Fuck.
Yeah,
that was
terrifying.
like so fucking awesome. And then like shooting it as it flew by it, and then not being able to find the dragon part that fell out.
A classic.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like the fact that they fly down through the chasms, because like it took me a minute because I was in the depths and I saw a dragon. I was like, holy fuck, are there underworld dragons too? And then I had to like make the connection that it's just the same ones, and they now fly down through the chasms. Like that's really cool.
Yeah,
like uniting the space in a like an interesting way. And yeah, that was my cool, mind-blowy dragon moment.
Ironically, the dragons don't do a good job of connecting the parts of the world together, because you can't like ride a dragon. And so the only interaction that you have with them relating to the Sky Islands is always jumping off of them to then go down and interact with the dragon.
You can ride the light dragon.
Oh yeah, you can ride the light dragon.
I know this because I went on a date with the light dragon.
Oh,
That
nice.
went really well and was good. Because it felt
How are your tea times?
pretty great. Perfect. Yeah. But yeah, and like, because I wanted to go into battle after I had found the special, like new top in the throne room.
Yeah.
I wanted to go into battle
yeah.
with that top, so I needed to farm materials. So
to
like
upgrade it.
Correct. And they're all light dragon parts. So the narrative in my mind was that like after Link learns that the dragon is Zelda, Link just kind of like hangs out on the dragon for like a very long time.
That is the story of your Link, yeah.
On like harvesting routines, and then got to go into battle. It wouldn't be all like my girlfriend made the shirt. I'll stain it in your blood.
I have to wonder. Well, actually, if you did that, one of my least favorite. So when I played Breath of the Wild, I was a big fan of the game, and I wanted to continue playing it after I finished it. I beat the game. I got all shrines, and I was like, my last final goal is I want to upgrade all the armor to the maximum. And then I got to the point where I had to get star pieces and dragon parts, and I said, never mind.
Yep.
And I didn't do it. I find the material gathering to be something they really should have not done in this game after seeing it in Breath of the Wild.
Really?
And they brought it back in exactly the same way.
I agree that it's too much. I would have missed not having some kind of reward for getting like a stupid little dragon piece. Like what else could you do with the dragons that just move around? That'd be cool.
What I did with the dragons, which is take their body parts and make immensely powerful weapons.
That's
with
actually
them.
perfect. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Fuse, I think, makes the necessity of collecting like 3 dragon things that you have to wait a day for them to respawn or whatever. It turns something that's cool into a job.
Yep.
Which always ruins it.
I agree.
Yeah, I do agree with specifically the dragon parts.
Yeah.
Overall, I like upgrading the armor, though.
Sure.
Because, like, it's nice to have stuff to do with all the shit that you pick up.
Yeah, and the other because you have, like you said, like, the cool new tunic that you want to wear.
Yeah, I just said fuck that when it said get however many dragon parts.
Right, because you have to upgrade it, because everything in this game kills you in one hit if you're nude.
Yeah. Yep.
And it did. Everything continued to kill me in one hit for like so long into the game, shockingly long. I found this game to be much more, I guess, difficult. Not really, because I mostly drove a makeshift fucking motorcycle around everything that would have threatened me.
Yeah.
But like the difficulty of the combat of this game is harder than it was in Breath of the Wild.
I think it's just that you went so long without finding the fairies.
Oh yeah, I didn't get them until like probably 15 hours before I ended the game.
What?
Yeah,
God.
I think it's like that's one of the reasons like I was trying to say about like between this and Breath of the Wild is like Breath of the Wild's designed as like a first time thing because it's a new game. And like one of the first fairy is like right in Kakariko, which like the game points you right towards at the beginning.
Right.
So you're really likely to find it early and be on the lookout for the others. But this game is just like you have to work for it more. Like you have to go find the stuff. So like you can go a long time with just like out any equipment upgrades.
Which is what I did. I went nude. Not really nude, but like basic paper thin armor.
Spiritually nude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I got like cool, what appeared to be like necromancer robes from the guys in the depths, and I said, "You can't pay me to take this off because I look so sick and edgy."
Oh, yeah. Can we take a moment to like compliment the person who is making these outfits?
Oh yeah,
I'm sure it's more than one person designing them.
No,
it's
it is the cloth man.
Yeah, what's the name of the legendary figure that hid all the armor?
Oh, I never got that quest.
There's just like a lady that walks around in the mushroom outfit in like all different areas of the game. It's like, hey, I'm looking for this legendary treasure from this guy. And
It's like Mitzi or something. Yeah. I remember you doing it.
Yeah.
But I never got anyone to point me in the direction. I found some of the armor.
Yeah.
And it has like a sign next to it
Yeah.
that says like, this is the legendary robber of Mitzi. Or she was like a rogue character who stole them.
She's just like, I think she's in like literally every section of the map, just like walking around.
And talking to people. Who's fucking talking to people? I got motorcycles to build, all right?
Do we want to talk about the depths? Or should we talk about runes or shrines? I feel like we should tackle something.
I actively don't want to talk about shrines.
Okay.
I do want to talk about the depths, though.
I do want to talk, and I don't want to talk about shrines like, hey, how did you do that one? Because that's like not interesting in any way. I do want you to answer this question because I've talked to multiple people and mostly have been given the opposite answer than what I would give. And that is, do you think the shrines in this game were overall easier or harder than the ones in Breath of the Wild, or about the same?
Easier or harder? I guess like slightly harder?
I thought they were all harder, yeah.
I thought they were like much easier.
Yeah, and I've also talked to other people who said that they were much easier.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think they are harder.
Yeah,
generally.
I think there's one that stumped me that I went to, and it's in the capture footage. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/noclippodcast.
Nice.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's just because I played Breath of the Wild and I just kind of like know what to expect from shrines, but like I found them all, and I think I've done like 110 of them at this point, and I found them all to be easy. In Breath of the Wild, I definitely found myself stumped by, or maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe
I
I'm
could be
remembering them.
misremembering
Yeah.
as well.
I remember them being harder on average, personally, in the first game.
I don't remember getting stumped by the physical puzzles as frequently as I am in Tears. Like there's one, in fact there's even a couple like pinball-esque mini games that I remember fucking around with for a weirdly long amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was basically it. I think over time I kind of realized that the reason that some of them were harder for me was mostly just because of my incredible dedication to doing it wrong. I really just wanted to not do it the way they intended to, and that made me spend a lot more time in them, which makes me think that they were harder even though they were not. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a little bit harder. That's it. I don't want to talk about shrines either. They had the same problem as the shrines in Breath of the Wild, where there's probably a bit
many.
too many of them,
Yeah.
and too many of them are just nothing shrines. Though they did remove the combat shrines. But there are a couple of like tutorial combat shrines, but I think it's less overall.
Yeah.
Far.
So I'll give it a pass. Still fun.
Great.
Liked it. Well, now what did you want to talk about? Now that we're done talking about the thing you don't want to talk about.
The depths.
The depths, correct. How much time did y'all spend in the depths? Did you enjoy your stay?
I spent a ton of time in the depths, and I loved my stay. But I think I stopped. I had like a early game depths exploration, which I liked most of all, and then I had like a mid game depths exploration, which I liked a little bit less because I was more concrete on how it worked.
Yeah. There was less. It was less terrifying. You knew kind of what was there, and you could kind of fly around. You felt safe to enter the darkness in a way that you did not feel safe to enter the darkness before.
Right. When I was running 35 steps and throwing a bright seed, that's when I was like really enjoying my time in the depths.
Yeah.
I had like 2 hearts left, and I was just throwing lights and suddenly hitting a wall I didn't know was right in front of me. That was a great experience.
Great.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm basically exactly the same. Yeah, I wish... I love that two of the dungeons... Oh, wait, no, one of the dungeons is in the depths, and 2 of them are in the sky. Like, I think that's cool that they tied that stuff, like skydiving into Death Mountain.
Yeah.
You know, pretty awesome. But I wish there was, like, more, like, significant content down there. Other than just, like, you light up the light roots, and you can get treasure, and that's kind of, like, about it.
Well, you get your battery, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a point at which you, like, get enough battery. You don't have to care anymore.
Yeah, like, if they'd taken, like, some of the shrines and put them down there, or, like, something else other than combat, I think that would have been nice.
Agreed. It needed, like, a little bit more. You could tell that they were, like, taking inspiration from, like, Subnautica style like exploration mechanics with the way that the lighting system worked. And there's definitely like a much more robust version of the depths that could have had a lot more surprise. But I'm not going to complain about a game that already has like 3 open worlds layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather have
Yeah.
the game with all 3 than a game where the depths are cooler.
Yeah, it's not a complaint, but it's just like it's so awesome early on that it would have been it just feels like it would have been nice if it could have kept it up a little more.
Technologically speaking, I am actually really happy with the way that they did the darkness part of the depths.
Ooh.
I think that it is really cool to see. As somebody who plays like a lot of horror games, I don't know if this is like a unique to people like me kind of experience, but I am very sick of playing games that do darkness by making you look at a black screen. You can't see your character, can't see shit in front of you. The fact that Tears of the Kingdom doesn't, it's like the depths almost don't appear dark in the traditional sense of like a dark area in a game, because like Link is very visible, the ground in front of you is even like sort of illuminated and eliminated, and when you throw the bright root, it really like gives you more. It's like terrifying.
Yeah.
Like the small amount of light that is what you're going by, as it like expands and you see like, or like my favorite when you throw it and it just never lands.
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
like, what happened?
Or it immediately hits a wall.
Yep.
That you didn't know was there.
Those experiences are like impossible in a game where they do darkness by just making everything really dark. And this game has this like sort of dynamic darkness system where you can still see technically, but but things are just not. I don't know. It's kind of difficult to describe.
Yeah, there's like light in the background,
Right.
and the things in the foreground are dark.
Yeah, there's like there's like a certain amount of ambient lighting.
So you could see things off in the distance and be making your way toward them, and there's untold horrors in your path between you and that destination. And yeah, I just really like the way they did it. I hope to see something give me this. I think I forget the name of the game. It's like Scanner Sombre or something.
Ooh.
It's
That
like
is-
a cave exploration game that has like a crazy sound-based sight system.
Yeah, it kind of represents it as like a dot matrix sort of thing.
Yeah. did a kind of similar thing, but you had more access to like a full view than you do in this game. But
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's the best way to handle darkness if you're not going to like specifically design around things being pitch black, like Outlast or something.
It is also fun that like the traditional way of lighting stuff up, like a torch, is like shit pissy bad.
Oh yeah,
in the depths.
When I first went down there, like I kind of adamantly tried to just use torches because that's like what I thought to do, and so I wanted to do it. But yeah, you had to put it out all the time.
Yeah, you gotta put it out.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to waste all of my flint and wood and stuff.
Indeed, one of the most precious like mid-game materials, wood.
Mm-hmm.
I cheesed the shit out of the Goron puzzle. Not all of it. I did 3 of them legitimately, and I couldn't I skipped on one at a midpoint or something. So I got back down to the very start of the Goron temple with one like missing piece of the whatever.
Oh yeah.
So I had to like find the way to get back up there. But that temple in particular is very sequential because of the way the rails work.
Yeah.
So I have a very wonderful memory of like, all right, it's like flint and wood time. Get those Hylian pine cones going. The best item.
Yeah, Hylian pine cones extremely strong. I will say I did not have any. I went there first. I did the fire temple as my first one, and yeah, and I will say the rails do not make it extremely sequential because you can just put a cart on your shield and just ride one rail, which means that a lot of that stuff where things are like broken and blocking your path, if you launch yourself into the sky and then come down on a rail with the shield, you can actually get across places, and that's how I mostly navigated.
Yeah, I never figured that one out. TikTok just showed me that one after I was done.
Oh, wow.
In addition to the, like, I don't know if you saw this excellent TikTok.
I've seen precious few TikToks, despite being 19 as established on the first half
Correct.
of the podcast.
You know the blocks that where you hit them to get them to freeze at a point in the air?
Yeah.
Apparently you could fuse those to arrows, and you can just be like, boop, and you can just like literally point and click, a platform is there now.
Oh, interesting. How does it know when to stop?
I don't know.
These are the mysteries of TikTok.
These and many more.
I think I did that temple a lot by just like climbing around the outsides of the buildings.
I did a lot of that too.
Yeah.
I kept thinking like, I wish there was a better place for me to use the ascend ability in here.
Yeah, that one's like designed against like that being useful.
Yeah, but I guess if you have those blocks that you can halt in midair, you can kind of do like a ascend hamburger where you go up through the bottom one and then through the floor above you, which is doable sometimes.
Yeah.
I am mad that there's in that temple. This is the only, I think, specific temple thing I want to call out. There's like a part, I don't even know where it is really in the temple, but there's a broken bridge that goes across this like gap, and you can easily you can walk underneath of it. You can go up to where the left side is. You can go up to where the right side is. The only reason you would ever need to repair the bridge is because there's a rock on the other side that you can break with Lumpy. Which, if you haven't listened to the original Breath of the Wild podcast, Lumpy is our name for Yunobo. It was back then, and I couldn't stop calling him that now.
Yeah, he's made his triumphant return in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, so I had Lumpy with me at all times. But you could use him to break that rock. And so I was like, I spent time trying to get this bridge together, including like building a little stack of carts to hold up the middle part of the bridge so that he could go across. And then as far as I can tell, there's no reward for doing that.
I had the same thing. My cheese was, I you know the little fire hydrants?
Yeah.
I set them up on one of the rivers so it kept making the long pieces of
No, you made a ramp.
hard lava. Yeah, and I just made a comically long ramp and I just rolled it over there.
The big stick is the best device in the game.
The what?
Where you just stick a bunch of stuff together in a big long line. It works wonders in all situations.
Comically long bridge.
Yep.
Good.
Even the tech print, that's not what they're called. The auto build stone.
Yeah.
Schema stone.
The schema stone.
Schema stones.
The schema stone for the bridge in this game is comically long. It's like literally 6 giant stone platforms is the scheme of stone. It's like, hey, we made this complicated blueprint.
Yeah.
Put 6 things together. It's real big.
Ancient technology.
I mean, that literally is ancient technology.
Yeah. Just like stick a bunch of blocks together. You can
That's ancient Earth technology.
yeah. You can, like, I don't know, like maybe make a house with it or something.
Yeah.
Oh man, why isn't that a scheme of stone? Where you just literally a house.
There's I think they call it like instant scaff or something, or a scaffold, where it's just like a
The sea? Oh yeah, the
it's
sea's
like,
real good.
Yeah, and you can usually set it up and like ascend through it. But you can make a house. That's kind of a house by itself. Turn it sideways.
Yeah.
It's
There's
like a
probably
long
like an
house.
attachment limit that I never experienced, just for
There
memory
is.
reasons.
I tried to glue all of the chests together after using all my amiibo in the game, and
Nice.
it hits a point where things just break off.
Okay. Sad days.
Yeah, the one temple thing I wanted to call out is on the way to the Zora one, where it's low gravity as you go up and there's like bubbles and stuff. Just that there's shrines on the way to the temple. There's a couple
Yeah.
of them, and in the shrines there's low gravity, which I thought was awesome. But then there's other places on Sky Islands where there's low gravity and there's shrines and the gravity is regular in the shrines.
Oh wow!
Inconsistency 0 out of 10. Worst game.
Cinema Sin Scoof, 100%.
that is a sin
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I was just like slightly disappointed by that.
Agreed. I do like though that the Sky Temple also has, I think, one shrine nearby, so that like if you climb
If you
all
fall.
the fuck ass way up there, you don't have to do it again if you want to leave or if you fall. Yeah, so that is good. I like them as checkpoints. And yeah, the fucking water temple low gravity thing was just super fun. I wish there was like more use of it, but also maybe it wouldn't be as special. I'm not sure. It was just fun to play around in.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed by Ganondorf.
The final boss.
Do we want to talk about that already?
1 hour into the second half.
I wanted to real quick just talk about the sages.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
that you have
yeah.
like an adventuring party with you, basically.
Okay. Yeah, that's worthwhile. That especially it further raises the ceiling of like war-based bullshit. And that was a great part of that lead up to that conclusion. Is the way that like as you are acquiring all of these like crazy party members, you get the opportunity to really like let loose with them.
Yeah. I fought the final boss after 25 hours of the game, I think. And I only had Lumpy at the time. And it was very funny for that. It plays the cutscene of just him showing up and going, "You don't have to fight this alone, Link." Which is funny because it's really just one other guy.
It is I, Lumpy.
It's Lumpy.
Champion of the Gore.
And I actually got like a solid like 70% into the like first like the Demon King's army health bar before I was slain and sent packing back to wherever the checkpoint was, and then I left. But it is amusing, and it does feel so much better when you have all of them.
I just wanted to ask if you left them all on all the time.
Oh yeah. I turned off the robot occasionally in the sky, but only because it was like obscuring my view sometimes.
Yeah, like I don't know how people play that way. I had them all off all the time unless I needed their specific abilities.
But don't you like literally always need the air ability?
Not really.
As somebody who did that one next to last, I didn't use it for like 70 hours.
Okay, when I say need, I mean need in like the whiny, like upper middle class way. Where what I mean is that like when I was walking around on the ground, I would jump and then do the air thing because that's like twice as fast as running. Yeah,
That's some real Chad strategies
so
right
you're
there.
correct. Yeah, if there was,
Well, the actual Chad strategy was to duct tape a bunch of springs together, fling myself 100 yards in the air, and then like bust out some kind of Tony Hawk skateboarding trick to get around. That's how I moved.
Good movement.
Yeah, I just remember in the first game thinking that like the champion abilities made the game way too easy, and lamenting on the podcast that you couldn't turn them off.
Right.
All the time you totally could, and I just didn't know. So I knew that I would prefer to play that way. And also, I feel like they lower the frame rate pretty bad.
Oh, they
and they get in the way
absolutely
of the camera all the time. Like, I was playing the game for a while, and I was like, man, like, I wonder if like all the extra like delays were just to make this game run way better than Breath of the Wild, because I feel like it hasn't had any frame rate drops and it runs so well. And then like there was like I did mess around with turning them all on. Like I was it Lurelin Village, like the pirate town. I was like, okay, Pirate Siege, turning on all my guys, and we're gonna fuck up shit. You know, I did that kind of thing, and I was like, the frame rate tanks.
I kind of love that. The older I get, the more I'm like starting to appreciate circumstances where I can feel the game kind of bending under my whims. Really. So like even with like the 10 FPS combat, at that level of chaos, it's not like I'm like they're Twitch reacting to the things that are happening on screen anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm totally cool with just making that switch chug.
Make that switch chug.
Yeah. My thing was I did the Fire Temple first, and I did it like, I don't know, 15, 20 hours into the game or something. All of these are very broad estimates, by the way, as far as my time goes. I was not keeping an active eye on that. But yeah, I played for a while and did the Fire Temple, and then I just had Lumpy for a long time. I didn't go do, I think the Water Temple was the second one I did, and I didn't do it for like another 20 hours or more into the game. So, and then I did that one and then the Wind Temple pretty close together. So, I didn't really have the experience of fighting with all of them. Most of the time it was just me or Lumpy. But when I did get them, I did leave them on, except Lumpy, who I ended up turning off a lot of the time because I would accidentally activate him.
Yep.
And just send him flying off in some direction, lighting shit on fire. But yeah, I did also mostly keep them all on it all the time because it's cool.
It is cool.
It's cool to have friends.
Totally cool.
Yeah.
The robot is terrible though.
What?
It to me, I understand what they want to do with it, but they made it deeply unsatisfying to play with.
It doesn't deal enough damage.
It doesn't do,
And it's very slow.
yeah, it's like I feel like I am a million times better at combat than this combat robot is.
Yeah, a little bit.
And it felt weird. And so I basically never used it after I was forced to.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like not fully realized, like something that they just kind of threw in the game at the last minute.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably not the case, but it kind of has that energy to it. Like, it doesn't feel like you get it right at the end and, like, you know.
Yeah. Did you
Clunky.
find the assembly facility prior to actually getting the quests to go there?
I didn't.
I did not. In fact, I was super annoyed because when I got the quest and went there, I was like one light route away. Like we could like see how close I came to just finding it, and that would have been the coolest shit ever. But
Yeah.
no.
No, I got there and like looked around and was like, I'm suspicious of this.
Yeah.
There's like a dude standing where like the body eventually gets built who's like, oh yeah, I just kind of like hang out here in case somebody needs a big robot. But you know, nobody's made an order in a while. I'm like,
Is it
I'm
just,
watching you.
Is it just a Giga Clan guy?
no, it's a robot. It's
It's one of the robots.
Yeah.
It's one of the dirts.
It's one of the dirts.
Dude, so I was playing the game and was in the depths and explored the Great Plateau fairly early and got the quest with put the eyeballs in the statue. And you go down there and you get the multi-hand ability or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
They gave it to me and they're like, hey, go use it on these things. I just left. I was like, I'm in the middle of this eye quest. I'll do that and come back, and then just forgot. So, like, it was like 50 plus hours later in the game, and I'm like talking to Chad. I'm like, I keep finding all this stuff from the Yiga clan in the depths, and like I haven't found Master Koga yet. And I'm like, what? Man, they're really building him up. Is he gonna be the last sage? I'm like, they really, man. It was just like, oh, I forgot to do that one quest and never found him until like 70 hours of game.
Yeah, so I had done part of the yoga quest.
Yoga quest.
Yeah, the quest for yoga of the yoga clan. And when you said that, when you were like, what, is he going to be like the last sage or something? I was like crushingly disappointed with Nintendo. I was like, God, why wasn't Koga the last sage? That would have been so funny.
Yeah, because I thought that was so cool, because I put the pieces together myself when I started finding all the Yiga clan stuff in the depths. I'm like, oh, your boss fight with him in the first game, you knock him down a big hole when he fell down here.
Yep.
Like, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it just was, like, this big mystery for me for, like, the whole game. And then I was just like, oh. I just missed him.
I just forgot to do
He's just
the thing.
around.
He's just around.
Just
yeah.
being, like, a fucking Looney Tunes bad guy.
My version of that is that I was several real world days into the game and kept saying to myself over and over again, this needs a blueprint mode. I feel like I would love Ultrahand even more than I already do if there was something that saved my blueprints and I could like quickly bust something out if I had the parts laying around. And then I found Ultrahand, but it was so late in the game that I was like, oh man, I'm just imagining all the time that I've wasted building the same shit over and over again when I could have had this.
This beautiful, beautiful feature.
It is a very good feature that I like. But I do wish that it was... I mean, I guess it's my fault because they told me to go there, and I just said, fuck off. I'm going to go in the opposite direction that you tell me, because
Shut
that's
up,
what I do.
child, you say. To the child giving you orders?
Yeah,
I'm literally like 105. Like, what's wrong with you?
I'm such an old man compared to you.
I have seniority, and I am also better on like a physical level. Probably intellectually better. They always say it's the quiet ones, right?
I thought they said that about people who, like, murdered people.
I don't know. Murderers are kind of smart.
They're kind of, yeah, they're intellectuals.
Okay, you want to talk about sexy man Ganondorf now?
Yeah.
I've been trying to find a way. So I'm just going to say this right now, and then we can talk about the final boss. I think the closest I came is when we were talking about the upgrading of armor and stuff. And I was hoping we could talk a little bit about material collection. But it isn't interesting in any way and wouldn't be a good thing to talk about. But every time that I picked up a cool Saflina, I thought of Funky Cool Medina, a song by Tone Loc from 1989. And I was wondering if anyone in our audience was old enough to remember that song. But I did say Funky Cool Saflina every moment, and it wouldn't... I have to get that online.
Okay.
That everyone knows that I couldn't stop thinking it every time I picked up that item.
I'm surprised that you know that song as a 19-year-old.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of people say I'm old for my age.
This is fair. Yeah. This is a safe space. You can absolutely cram your weird thoughts directly into this podcast. It's fine.
It was like, well, we did an episode recently on a game called The Bunker, and we just had to somehow find a way to talk about Diarrhea Wednesday. And eventually it never came up, so we just had to yeah, we just had to somehow bring it in.
Okay.
So I think that's the new sort of pathos. Let's talk about the final boss.
Speaking of Diarrhea Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, they could have done this so good.
They did our very sexy boy Ganondorf dirty.
Yeah.
Did you think it was bad?
No, I'm not even talking at a mechanical level. I'm talking like...
Like no build-up?
Yeah, I kept waiting for like the memory when I was getting the dragon tears that would like elucidate like the dwarf motivation, right? Like what he's doing here. Because the world because it is like so damaged and feels so old, a lot of the characters within it, unless they're very intentionally trying to be funny, feel like a little bit realized, right? Like it feels believable to me that like the weird alien god guy has motivations, and they spend a lot of time describing how like what? Yeah, I'm talking about Rauru.
Okay.
How like Rauru has normal conversations and like has a relationship with his wife. There's like a lot of text.
Seems like a real guy.
Yeah. A lot of even like the big main characters are all like real people. But like, nope, the dwarf boy is just like literally evil for evil's sake.
Yeah, he's just evil.
Yeah, he's like literally just evil. I felt the buildup of like another Wind Waker moment where they were going to give it just like the tiniest nugget that he would be like cool and awesome.
Well, you could even like it feels like it's prime for one of those like, hey, like he points out this world is just like gets fucked over and over again, and like I'm gonna fix it. Like everyone rally behind me, and I'll actually like fix your problems, kind of a thing. Because like Hyrule's kind of a fucked to death pile of burning caca.
It is, yeah.
So like you could the pieces are there to give him like something to do.
There's even like allusions about the fact that they're constantly bring up how like the Zonai are treated as like deities, despite very obviously just kind of being people. But there really isn't even that doesn't get addressed. Like there isn't a point where he's like this weird, way too extreme freedom fighter. There isn't even that much. Like he's literally just like, I want to kill people.
Yeah, I'm the evil man.
Yeah, I'm the evil man. I want to own you. I love slavery.
I want to have blood moons because they're metal and have horrible pig demons roam the lands and kill everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think, and that is a good point, though. I think that would have been such a good angle for it, because they do address the Zonai themselves. Honestly, end up being kind of a missed opportunity in terms of like giving the protagonists a bit of any kind of a complication whatsoever.
Yeah,
like the Gerudo come in the scene where they introduce Ganondorf, in terms of chronologically speaking down the memories.
Right.
They're like coming seemingly like many races do to swear fealty to King Rauru,
Right.
which is a uncomfortable, weird thing when everyone has sort of their own sovereignty to maintain. And then Ganondorf shows up and Zelda's like, I don't like that guy. And he's like, oh no, we know. We're going to keep a close eye on him.
Yeah.
And then, but that's it. It's not like there's nothing, no doubt is cast.
Well, yeah, and like this was like a great opportunity, I think, in this game, given that we've had all of Breath of the Wild, for like Ganondorf just is a Gerudo, and they don't tie the Gerudo in with him and like what he's doing in any way. You go to Gerudo Town, and they're just like, oh, the Demon King, whatever. They're not like, oh, he's not one of us. You know, like they don't even like mention him.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's
like
a
in
bummer.
Riju, like he would be like, you know, like she's the leader of the Gerudo, and here's the king over here. Like, what do you think about that, Riju? Like, nothing.
No, it has no thoughts.
Nothing.
Yeah. Fan of the dragon fight, though. I mean, obviously the dragon was going to help you as like an echo of his past loyalty and love for you. But
was so stressed out that they weren't going to give you your hearts back for the dragon fight. Because, like, I got down pretty low fighting Ganondorf.
I had 3.
Yeah, like, and I was like, oh my, if I had lose to this next phase and have to do it all over again, oh, it's gonna suck so much ass.
Yeah. The saving grace is that you do get hearts back.
Yeah, you
to
get them all
gloom
back
when you're in the sunlight. So I did assume.
Oh yeah, I was too stressed out to think clearly.
I found I genuinely want to know if I am just bad or if there's an intended. Or if there's an intended way of fighting Ganondorf.
No, it was really a resource attrition battle for me.
Okay.
Like I never figured out like what triggers him doing the crazy backflip dodge. Because what really freaked me out is the first time I ever saw him do that.
Yeah.
It was in response to me flurry rushing him.
Right. The fact that he can respond from your parry with his own is like perfect dodge, whatever.
Yeah.
Is. To me, I think a little excessive.
Fair. It was a great moment. Like the second I was like, "Oh fuck, I can't just like hit him with swords even the good way, right?"
Right. Yeah.
But like I never found the other way. I just like
I think from my memory, and it's been like a week or whatever, so it's not the clearest. Is like if you try to attack him head on, like just walk up to him and hit him, he does the backflip. Like he'll just dodge you. Like you have to like you have to like attack him with flurry rushes basically.
Yeah.
And you can only really do it after he does an attack. So he does one of his big moves, then you run up and hit him, and wait, no, he'll go to hit you, and then you can dodge and get the flurry rush, and he won't dodge it.
Right.
So I think you have to like, in response to his big attacks,
In
then
response.
go hit him.
In response.
But
Yeah.
if you try to take the fight to him, it doesn't go well.
Yeah, I think you actually have a point. I don't think I put this together when I was actually doing the fight, but I'm reasonably certain that, yeah, you facing him is the trigger.
Yeah.
Because you obviously can't just walk up and hit him. The game just does not allow it. And he will dodge your flurry rushes, but maybe only if you come in from the front.
Yeah.
Because when I'm successfully able to hit him, honestly, it was just the spear thrust attack. He would do a thrust and go, and he would go past you, and you would dodge and flurry rush into him, and that was like all my damage came from that.
The timings were hard.
Yeah.
Because, like, I did really well early, and then, like, I got in my own head for, like, the middle chunk where, like, I just kept whiffing it every time. Like, I can't get the timing right.
Yeah. To me, it's like, it's difficult, but it's not difficult really in a satisfying way.
Yeah.
I thought it was cute when his health bar went all the way to the right side of the screen.
Oh, yeah, that was
cool.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Very funny. Enjoyed that a good bit. I liked the first phase of the fight. I liked the fucking Demon King's army part was fine.
Yep.
Mostly because, and I didn't mention this before, but I feel like I should. The Bokoblin boss, the boss Bokoblin, the big Bokoblin,
The big Bokoblin boss.
the big Bokoblin boss, best enemy in the game, best new enemy potentially. I like that it blows a horn and they take formations. Like, it's so sick, and it actually made me want to engage with them in combat. So I like to see them in the final boss.
Yeah.
The guy that I loved so much made a return at the end of the game, which was very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it got to that third phase where he's just dodges all of your attacks. You're basically forced to use the Master Sword, and also his hits.
I don't think it can break in the fight.
It
Right,
cannot.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it incentivizes you to use the Master Sword, even though I had like, what if I wanted to hit him with like a octopus stick?
Okay. All right, Chad.
Not
Free
very
the world from
viable.
evil with your sacred octopus stick. It's a bit much.
You didn't soak the octopus stick in Zelda's head
That is
for
true.
100 years, so...
In my version, I would have.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I don't know.
But yeah,
it wasn't a very satisfying
Yeah,
fight.
and
to
I
me.
really like that he takes your hearts away, too.
Yeah.
Same.
But yeah, it is a little bit... The timings are on the flurry rushes, I think, are what is too difficult about it. Because it feels like each one is completely inconsistent with the others.
Yeah.
Which is what I think is the problem with flurry rushes as a mechanic in general. Like, sometimes it feels like the animation is just like they're barely lifting their weapon, and that's when you trigger the flurry rush, and it's like not at all when you think it would be.
Right.
And
This
it's like varies between enemies, and it's like not consistent at all.
This is the problem that Sekiro solves with those marker symbols, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but like forcing enemies to have like consistent timing signals by just like making a thing appear on screen.
The downside of that is that there's the tell part of it. And keep in mind, this would not be a downside in Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom is a Zelda game that is not really about its complicated combat system. But it means that like there's no learning an enemy. You just watch for the thing to pop up on screen. There is still some in Sekiro, but in Zelda that wouldn't really be there. But yeah. The flurry rushes were bad in the first game, and they're bad again here. Surprise.
Yeah.
They're not the focus, and they shouldn't be the focus, and if they're your focus, rethink your life.
Yeah.
Whoa! You know what I think the focus of the ending of this podcast should be?
What's that?
The fucking nuclear explosion on the death of Ganondorf.
Oh,
the like all life on the surface ending destructive explosion. One of the best explosions I've ever seen. I like actually guffawed audibly seeing the explosion.
It was pretty rad.
Pretty excellent.
I also just like in Breath of the Wild before it, that the final boss is just in the world. and you can just like go fight him whenever. Not that I like did, like, you know, Chad went and fought him like 25 hours in.
I had to. I got down there. I was like, I'm not just gonna not
Yeah,
do
like,
it.
but the fact that it's just out there is like there's like gives it a cool sense to the game. It's just like destroy Ganondorf, and that's always in the back of your head.
Yeah. Yeah, big ups. Definitely cool. A big fan.
Big ups.
Big ups.
Big ups.
Uh,
The symmetry of the hand grab at the end with Zelda,
Oh yeah, that was pretty good.
also beautiful. Yeah. Good game. I love video games.
good game.
There was a moment when I was like very hype after completing Tears of the Kingdom, where I was like, I'm never gonna play another AAA game again. This is the last video game I'll ever play. I've since mellowed on that a little bit,
The Legend of Zelda, the last video game.
but goddamn, it was a very, very wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Are you giving preemptive final thoughts?
Do we have hearty thoughts?
I don't know, what, Farron thoughts or something like that?
Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
All right, hearty thoughts.
Uh,
I guess I'll
yeah.
go first.
You normally go first, but now we have a third person.
I usually go first, so I was going to give JJ the opportunity.
Thank you.
So my hearty thoughts are, yeah, I don't know. I feel like JJ, definitely high on the game now after like, you know, finishing it recently. But I feel like if I was a robot, I would just straight up say this is just much better than Breath of the Wild. Like it's Breath of the Wild, but with more. And the more stuff is good stuff. So, but like for me, like it definitely lacks the impact Breath of the Wild had. Like being a brand new thing, being a reinvention of Zelda, being like a watershed big title from Nintendo. It feels like it was so long since there'd been something like that from them. So I think I liked it a little bit less, but I think technically it is just a better game. So,
Yeah.
which is like a weird, you know, opinion to hold. It kind of sounds like I'm trying to both sides of the issue, but that's how I feel. Yeah, like it was cool to revisit the world. I do think they did enough different stuff to make it not feel like, you know, an Ascended DLC or something. The depths are awesome, you know, like exploring those for the first time was probably my favorite part of the game. I think, yeah, certain things were a little bit missed opportunity, like the Zonai, as we were saying, and the Sky Islands kind of fell a little flat for me. But yeah, like, it's cool to see Nintendo push into like more modern game design. Like the whole combining objects thing feels like such a modern idea, and it's cool to see it in a Zelda game. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with it. It's cool to see a sequel in the same game world, you know, like I feel like that's relatively unique, and I'm glad to like have seen it done and done so well. But yeah, I mean, overall really good, but didn't quite like wow me like the first one did personally.
Yeah. You always kind of have that interplay where like the context of when a game was encountered in your life and its context within like the rest of the gaming sphere when it came out, it that is often, as we all know, like what determines how large of an impact something makes in your mind overall. You know, I would never ever consider a lot of the games that I consider like formative early Kingdom Hearts games, like even to like hold a candle to the craziness that is this thing, but the difference in impact remains nonetheless. I'm not gonna like think about this game forever because I'm like an old enough crusty person where it's hard, so much of like the things that form my identity are calcified that it's hard for me to imagine something really getting in nooks and crannies and shaking things up. But I can fully imagine being like a 14-year-old again, whose like entire life trajectory was changed by like the ability to make, I don't know, the fucking capacitor switches in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that like there was a generation of people post Minecraft that like changed the industry in innumerable tiny ways. I suspect there is going to be a generation of people like post Tears and post Breath of the Wild who will change open world design and similar functions, and not just in like the cash grabby like what's that fucking anime game? God damn it.
Oh,
Genshin
Genshin
Impact.
Impact.
Yeah, not like in a like iterative Genshin Impact way, but in a like thinking about the implications of the design way. Tears is crazy. Tears is probably like the best game on the Switch. Tears is perfect for the Switch.
Hashtag.
It is perfect for the Switch.
Yeah, it is. And I love it to death and will recommend it to my mom.
All right. Mom Tears. Mom
This game is
Kingdom.
mom tier.
Yeah, it's a mom tier. That's all right. We'll codify that later. Yeah, all the things I said. Basically, I think like my grand takeaway from Tears of the Kingdom is that I think that when you compare it to Breath of the Wild, it is a better game in almost every way. It's a really difficult thing to put your finger on in terms of like what that difference of opinion comes from, but it is a holistically, I think Breath of the Wild makes a bigger impact on the scene, whereas Tears of the Kingdom is just is the larger meteor that crashed afterward and just sort of widened the crater.
Yeah, it didn't make the dinosaurs go extinct.
Yeah, it made like the two dinosaurs that were left really extinct after hitting it. But yeah, I don't know. I fucking love this game. I thought it was a game that I had a really actually weirdly difficult time to getting into. But once I was there, I stayed there for many, many hours, doing dumb shit, doing smart shit. It was all the shit that I like to do. It had in abundance. So yeah, big fan. Thought it was really good. It is weird the way intangibles work in forming opinions on things. So
Indeed.
yeah, indeed. That's there it is. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're entering into our new theme month, sure to be celebrated by people around the globe. Spooktember in July.
God, the pure hate behind this smile. This big and stupid smile on my face and just absolute rage in my heart.
Please explain.
Yeah, it's Spooktember in July. We're not even really doing 4 horror games. We're just 2 loosely themed games from 2 different... the first one, though, is going to be Resident Evil Village, or as the game would prefer to be known for some reason, Resident Evil VII_age.
I don't think that's true. I think you're a liar.
Yeah, no, they probably like to be called Resident Evil Village.
A little bit.
Yeah. But until that time, you can get a hold of us and tell us what a great idea Spooktember in July is on our on our website at noclippodcast.com. There you can find our email address, our Twitter account, links to our Discord server where you can suggest games for us to play, or the YouTube channel, and you can listen to all of our old episodes, including the 2-parter that we did on Breath of the Wild. We do a Zelda game every year.
Yeah, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker.
Yep.
All of them.
Covered them all. And you can't say we didn't do it. Smash that like button.
I'm not even going to try to make more jokes.
No,
Done.
not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I don't want to get into the testicle market.